Hello everyone! Today we're going to take a look at a classic creature feature gem, which might also be the very first creature feature that I ever saw, 1958's The Blob. One night in a small town, a meteor crash lands in the woods. An old man finds it and pokes at it with a stick, and it breaks apart to reveal a small mass, which attaches itself to the old man's hand. Panicking when he can't get the goo off, he runs into the street, where he's assisted by a couple kids, Steve and Jane, who are driving around looking for the meteor. They take the old man to a doctor, not realizing that it's no ordinary organism they're dealing with. The blob starts to grow, consuming the old man, the doctor, and anyone else unlucky enough to fall into its path. I know I say this a lot, but this is one of my mom's favorite movies, and when I saw it when I was a little kid, I liked it, but I was pretty scared of it, which I feel a little sheepish admitting now. Of course, by today's standards, The Blob isn't very scary, it's quite tame, and there's a lot they don't show. But hey, things are different when you're a little kid. Scary movies are much more effective. This is a really fun, low-budget sci-fi monster movie directed by Irvin S. Yeworth Jr. and starring Steve McQueen, billed for the last time in his life as Stephen McQueen. This is shortly before McQueen became the king of cool, but he's still one of the movie's biggest draws. What's funny is that his character, Steve Andrews, is kind of a square. Not totally, since the first shot of the movie has him kissing a girl in Lover's Lane, but he is a little more conscientious than your average drag-racing, curfew-breaking 1950s teen, and the other guys rag on him for being too serious and needing to loosen up, which, if you think about the fact that this is Steve McQueen, is kinda ridiculous. If you're thinking, he doesn't look like a teenager, that's because he isn't. Steve McQueen was 28 at the time. He took the job for the money, turning down a 10% share of the profits in favor of a $2,500 paycheck. That was probably the smart decision at the time, but considering how many millions the movie ended up grossing later on, it was his loss in the long run. The other big draw is the Blob itself, a simple but seemingly unstoppable antagonist. The special effects are impressive for the time. That sounds so condescending. I think they're still impressive. A couple times what you see is a deflated weather balloon, but for most of its screen time, the Blob is a gelatinous mass created by mixing silicone and red dye. They added more red as the Blob got bigger, since it was getting bigger by eating people. Bart Sloan is credited as the man behind the visual effects, the creation of the Blob, the matte paintings, the brief animated sequence, and the delightfully trippy main titles. Over this credit sequence, you get to hear the song Beware of the Blob, written by Burt Bacharach and Mac David and performed by the Five Blobs. A sort of last-minute addition, the song became a Billboard hit and is now a must-have track on the playlist of any 50s-60s novelty song connoisseur. The Five Blobs were actually just one guy, Bernie Nee, dubbing over himself in a studio. The song is heavy on the sax, light on the lyrics, fun to dance to, and easy to get stuck in your head. Bum ba ba bum 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 ba bum ba bum ba bum ba 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 bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba 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 bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba 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 bum. Bum bum ba ba bum 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 ba bum ba bum ba 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 bum. The movie both follows and breaks certain genre conventions. It does pit the teens against the authorities, but unlike a lot of other movies of the time, it shows the teens in a positive light. They investigate things the police ignore, they go around trying to warn people, and they chip in to help save the town. And while there's one policeman who would gladly lock up all the teenagers in town and throw away the key, they've got the main officer on their side, Officer Dave. He's a good guy, even though he apparently has no last name. He's just Dave. There is some stuff that feels like filler, and it does have its share of illogical moments. Like when the nurse enters the examination room and sees the Blob on the floor. There's no reason why she couldn't leave the room. The Blob's approaching, but it's slow enough at that point that she could run out as easily as she walked in. She could probably run in and out half a dozen times. But it's quirky things like that you've gotta love about the movie. That and the little side characters, like the civil defense volunteer who wakes up with the air raid siren and struggles to get into his uniform, and the doctor's housekeeper who insists on trying to clean up a crime scene and dust around the fingerprints. They're both only featured in one scene, but they make an impression. And watching it the other day, it suddenly occurred to me that a lot of these people probably weren't professional actors. So afterward, I looked up the cast, and what do you know, for a lot of them, this was their only film role. And a few others only appeared in this and in The 4D Man, the film that director Irvin S. Yeworth Jr. made the following year. So no wonder The Blob has an authentic small-town feel. It was a low-budget project, but it turned into a financial success, especially as the years went by, Steve McQueen became a superstar, and drive-ins and late-night horror shows on television began to replay it. Maybe it's not quite as famous as some other more prestigious 1950s sci-fi movies, but there are images I consider iconic, like the blob oozing through the air vent, the covered diner, and the famous scene where the extras come running out of the movie theater. If you freeze frame that scene, you can see that many of the people are smiling, like this is the most fun they've ever had. Look, Ma, I'm in a movie! The town where that scene and many others were shot is Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, which hosts a Blob Fest every July where you can go and participate in a whole bunch of fun events, including a hilarious reenactment of that famous movie theater scene. James Rolfe from Cinemasker made a fantastic short film about Blob Fest titled Blob Town, and it's here on YouTube, and I recommend checking that out. This film does have a sequel of sorts, which came out 14 years later, 1972's Beware the Blob, also known as Son of the Blob. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it, although I will say it looks pretty schlocky, and there was a remake of The Blob made in 1988. Being the curmudgeon that I am, I used to be totally against this and all remakes on the principle that old classics shouldn't be remade. Also, because I'm kind of a squeamish person, I tend to not like the 80s remakes of the 50s horror films so much. I don't watch the old films and think, gee, you know what this needs is more blood and guts, more graphic gore, more graphic horror, especially body horror. So the 80s remakes really aren't up my alley, but I have heard that The Blob is a fairly decent movie, so I might check it out sometime. I think there might have been another remake that came out in the early 2000s, but I can't find any info about it, so that's making me question everything. I'm pretty sure that I saw some of it on TV once upon a time, and rumors have been circulating for the last several years about another remake in the works, but after all this time, it still doesn't seem to be anything but rumors, so I'm not sure when that might actually happen. If it does, I'm sure it will have a ton of CGI, which, I have a hard time getting excited about, but that's just me. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Blob. Is it one of the greatest horror films ever made? No, but that's part of the charm. It's definitely an old sci-fi classic, and if you like such things, you should check it out if you've never seen it. I hope you enjoyed the review. Share your thoughts on The Blob if you've seen it in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching!